if we can agree that our education system has always been there to produce those who can produce, then why not accept the fact that in order to produce those who can produce, over time, you'll have tools that will augment their ability to produce. And here we have before us generative AI. But what still remains as a gap and as a necessity is the ability to think. And that is innately human. While these models are becoming exceedingly complex, that ability to really think on that human level will be something that for generations to come, we will impart continuously in our education system. The education system needs to really go back to formula and understand if the fundamental objective of education is to produce those who can produce, then embrace it at that level. We should not look towards retrofitting new age tools into systems that existed well before these new age tools were even conceptualized.
Mr. Eldon Marks is a serial tech entrepreneur from Guyana. He founded V75 Inc., Guyana's first AI company in 2018, building AI solutions for global clients. Recently, he launched CoETaL Inc., an AI product company with support from IDB Lab. CoETAL's AI platform makes generative AI accessible to small businesses and government agencies in Guyana. Eldon has spent 2 decades in tech as an academic practitioner and social entrepreneur, mentoring thousands and creating opportunities for future tech innovators. He holds a master's in computer science with a focus on AI from Howard University. So, Mr. Marks, thank you for being here with us. Welcome, warm welcome to the UG community. We look forward to your presentation on the future of AI in education.
Thank you, Dr. Besesser. It's an honor to be among such distinguished panelists. And in this short 15 minutes of sharing, I'd like to present a few perspectives leading off of many of the presentations thus far. And I'd like to open by just helping us to just recognize that the shift that we are experiencing when it comes to the era that we're in, and I use that term deliberately, the era of generative AI, is indeed a brand new era, and it has transitioned from an era that is relatively different. And we need to recognize how much of a tremendous shift this has dealt to not just the education systems around the world, but industries, entire industries in the tech sector. Even there's a lot of shifts and the key term right now, which is what we're experiencing in industry, and I'm sure which is what the academic community is experiencing, is a requirement to adapt. And I'd like to lead on with the idea of what does it mean to really adapt. So within the education sector, it's an education system. A lot of it's been widely at least circulated that the education system's been relatively unchanged for the past century or so in terms of the modalities of imparting information. In adapting, we need to reassess and understand what is the objective of education. What are we really, employing, or what is our expected end result? And again, the crystallization in my mind about education is that we are producing those who can produce. That's the fundamental objective, I believe, of education. We're producing those who are able to think, but we begin with the process of imparting knowledge. And that knowledge has, in times before, been captured in scrolls, then books came about, and then libraries came about. And what we have right now is a continual centralization of knowledge in these language models, for example. So you'll find that these language models, even though they're not perfect, that we wield today, they're just another progression, just another representation of our collective knowledge as a species. But the representations and the delivery systems vastly different from what preceded it. libraries were pretty much read-only. You'd go into a library, you'd take a few books down, you consume the information, you'd internalize it, and then you would generate on your own the outputs. In this day and age, we have centralized knowledge. These language models are vastly collective in terms of their understanding of all various topics and areas. And they do indeed hallucinate, but largely they have facts, they have parametric knowledge, and they have contextual knowledge built within them that are tremendously powerful in terms of individuals, academics, researchers, individuals who are seeking knowledge. So what we have to recognize is that we need to go back to formula when it comes to education. And I know that's not a very comfortable thing to stomach at this juncture, because the representation of knowledge, the centralization of knowledge in these language models, in addition to the ability or the delivery system that they come with, the ability to actually have these language models generate output on our behalf or on our, for us, that's shifted everything. And it's really a call to the education systems worldwide to really go back to formula and ask yourself, what is the fundamental purpose of education? And then ask yourself, what is the fundamental purpose of education in light of that centralization of knowledge, the accessibility of knowledge that we now have that crosses accessibility limitations, language, and the like? What against that backdrop would necessitate the redefinition of education in its own right? So if it is that we formally raised or at least imparted knowledge, coupled with the fact that we raised thinkers and then produced doers, the imparting of knowledge is shifted. So what this means is that our methods of assessing, our methods of really evaluating the candidate's ability to assimilate knowledge and then represent that knowledge once again needs to shift as well. Knowledge is widely accessible. ChatGPT, for example, you type in a question, it produces an answer for you. You can type in a more complex prompt and it can produce an entire paper for you. And we have to acknowledge the fact that we live in a realm where knowledge is widely accessible, but our education systems are still desperately trying to retrofit this newfound technology into relatively archaic processes of instruction and evaluation. We should be looking at the formula and what's left after the fact that, we acknowledge the fact that knowledge is widely accessible and is generative now, is that there is still this requirement to raise thinkers. The thinkers that will become doers, those individuals who would eventually produce over time. And I'll give you an example in terms of what we've experienced at the industry level. At the industry level, we primarily would run internships to train coders, teach them languages, and eventually get them to a point where they're, at the level where we can employ them and put them on actual industry-specific projects. At present, there are language models out there that are way more adept, that contain the collective knowledge of all of the coders that have ever contributed to GitHub, for example. And they are way more adept at generating code than we could ever imagine. So that's shifted the industry's perspective on how do we really hire right now? What do we look for, since our engineers they can pretty much go to ChatGPT once again and generate code. So how do we actually know who's a good coder or who's really worthwhile to fill this position or not? So what we've relied on is really a focus on, can you solve problems? Can you decompose a problem well enough to be able to use the tools of our time to produce a worthwhile solution, an outcome? So it's really more of an outcome-driven, an outcome-driven particular focus right now in light of all of these powerful technologies. And this is a shift that we're undergoing within industry, where we're hiring thinkers. You don't necessarily have to know the language. You don't necessarily have to memorize the syntax. You can simply look it up. You can simply use tools and autocomplete plugins in your code editors to generate out the code. But you'll still need the critical thinking ability, that intelligence, if you will, to understand what you're trying what problem you're trying to solve, and then produce a solution thereafter. So I believe the education system, and I'm going to shift the points I'm going to make towards our future of AI and education. Our education system needs to go back to formula and understand that, again, it's been acknowledged, AI is not going away. It's likened on to the time where calculators, for example, were invented. They were met with quite a lot of reservations because at that time, where the education system was, the metrics of evaluating aptitude pre-existed the advent of a calculator. But eventually we realized that we could do so much more, way more complex things if we would embrace the calculator. While some may think that the calculator still makes us a bit lazy, just think about the end result. And this is why I mentioned that we need to really reassess that formula. If we can agree that our education system has always been there to produce those who can produce, then why not accept the fact that in order to produce those who can produce, over time, you'll have tools that will augment their ability to produce. And here we have before us generative AI. But what still remains as a gap and as a necessity is the ability to think. And that is innately human. While these models are becoming exceedingly complex, that ability to really think on that human level will be something that for generations to come, we will impart continuously in our education system. So in terms of looking forward, what does the future look like when it comes to the education system and the backdrop of AI? So AI can be seen as a force of augmentation. So we're already seeing how the AI tools that we have currently can augment the student's ability to access information, to generate content based on requests and objectives, learning objectives, for example. That content that's generated, unfortunately, is still valuable, but it's not framed in such a valuable manner because it's put against a system that is not yet suited to accept that we have new and improved tools that drastically change the entire landscape of education itself and other sectors. So what we'll need to do in the future is to look towards having personalized assistants that pair with students. And this is a huge opportunity when it comes to generative AI space. Within our firm, we've actually prototyped tools, and this is for early education students. We've prototyped tools that serve as companions, AI-based companions to children. And the children are able to interact with these AI-based companions. It's all generative. And the AI-based companions listen to what they say. They present options to the child. The child interacts with these AI-based companions, and they offer a personalized educational path for these lower school children. And we've also done work for other firms that train medical students, for example. And what we've been able to do is have these models ingest vast amounts of medical text and present an AI-based tutor to help these medical students prepare for medical exams. It can answer questions. It can actually facilitate the generation of simple quizzes. And with each right or wrong answer, the AI agent is able to explain why every step of the way. And what we see more, or what we will see more in the future, is that you'll have more personalized education, which is ideally what we really need, what we needed in the education system from the inception, since it's been largely generalized. These agents are capable of understanding the individual that interfaces with them to an extent so as to identify their strengths, identify their weaknesses uniquely, and augment those strengths and focus on developing further to mitigate those weaknesses. Something that human counterparts may not necessarily be able to do given the student instructor ratio. So you'll see more personalized AI agents placed within the education system. You'll also see augmentations on the side of administration. So the educational institutions are organizations or businesses in their own right. And they're business processes within these organizations also. And what you'll find is that at the level of those instructors, there is a place for AI-based augmentation to assist in grading, to assist in the generation of assessment questions, for example, to assist in just the evaluation and analytics when it comes to just understanding the student models of your class, of the individuals, of the learners that you interface with. It's an augmentation tool that can be placed at the level of the instructors as well. And then you find as well at the level of the administration of institutions, educational institutions as well, being able to largely go through various applications for enrollment of students who fit certain models. And of course, by then, there are concerns with regards to biases, but with the way that the technology is progressing and the ability to reinforce and fine-tune models, you have more control in terms of not necessarily being subjected to knowledge and facts and weights that are outside of your own concept or conceptual view of your own metrics and rubrics, but you'll be able to customize your own particular models based on what you're looking for with regards to the students that you enroll in your institution as well. So you'll find that more and more from the level of the student, you have that level of personalized augmentation. At the level of the instructor, you'll have that level of augmentation to assess and to guide and to produce instructional content. At the level of the administration of the institutions, you'll have, again, that level of ability to just automate, almost fully automate the ability of assessing applicants and identifying whether they are of standard to admit over time. And this is just a tip of the iceberg that I'd like to share. So in terms of closing, just to recap, I believe that we have exited one era. We have entered into a brand new era. The tooling that we have at our disposal right now, albeit it's a bit young, even though it's as advanced as it is, the tooling that we have should be seen as an opportunity to go back to formula. The education system needs to really go back to formula and understand if the fundamental objective of education is to produce those who can produce, then embrace it at that level. We should not look towards retrofitting new age tools into systems that existed well before these new age tools were even conceptualized. And then finally, there is this opportunity for augmentation in many, many levels of the education system and those learners. Thank you.